All right. So, I know people want to see more compare and contrast between different superhero prose sagas and whatnot. Um, unlike CC's stuff with the Pantheon, where it's setting up a wider range of stuff where the superheroes have all these personal problems, and it's grounded in reality type of, kind of like this whole realism infection that's happening to most superhero pros. Dark Titan, you know, even with the Omnibus collections, he yeah, he goes cosmic from like the get go. This overall big overarching kind of like a mythological setup, and I enjoy that. Like a lot of space fantasy has that, a lot of science fantasy has that, where I rather see the overall bigger picture or the bigger part of the onion, and then you can kind of go slowly in and see what happens. Like the whole setup with the swordsman, I liked how it opened because it is more action packed, and you don't really get a sense of who the swordsman is, like their regular identity. You're just getting a look at their super heroic identity from the get go. The CC series, Pantheon and stuff, it's more focusing on the kind of like who the average person is underneath the mask initially. And for me, superhero pros, I wanted to open up on a, you know, more explosive note, which New Olympus Saga does as well with Vic and everything, but you don't know, yeah, that's his particular uh, civilian identity until later. Or am I misremembering it? I gotta reread things and I gotta make more notes. But yeah, it opens up here with a bit of a car chase, and of course they manage to capture this particular lady. But something about her unsettles the swordsman, and he's like, who is this? So this thing opens up with a decent hook of like, oh, there's a little bit of a mystery. You keep dabbling in the mysteries, and that's one other way to pull somebody along. A lot of the pulps used to do this too. You don't really get too much like description overall of the setting because they're assuming you already know, like, okay, this is kind of what a cityscape looks like. Because to me, like, depending on where you set the superhero pros setting, you don't have to go crazy on like this is this particular city unless it's an alternate Earth that diverted radically from ours. Then you can add in like whatever other bells and whistles you want, like what I did with some of the tech in Uplift Protocol. But I think my aversion to some of that stuff comes from the fact that Mr. Weber did do those overtly long 10 to 20 page setups of his technical stuff on the ships, especially in later Harrington books, which I get it, because again, if you're going to write something, the writer themselves has to be the one that's ultimately very interested in what they're doing. And here, the death in Retropolis, it sets up a little mystery of the wider angle that the Dark Titan universe is going for. If you're a little bit of a stickler for a handful of like artifacts, like where there's a period and a question mark, next to each other, then okay, what you're probably gonna be like, oh no, I'm a grammar Nazi. But for the most part, everything flows pretty smoothly. I got no qualms with that. The biggest thing is to make sure the reader wants to keep reading. And even though the swordsman has a little bit of a Batman motif, I don't get the sense that they're going for a Snyder kind of Batman take, which I'm like, thank you, Jesus, thank you. And we'll move on from there because, like, yeah, I could get into a whole other level of rant with Snyder's take on more aspirational kind of heroes. I realize a whole lot of people love that stuff, but to me, it connects about as much as some of my friends, enjoyment of Superman. They only find Snyder Man interesting, so I'm just saying, like, yeah, it's just a complete disconnect with me with most of Snyder's stuff. He should be on stuff like The Punisher. That's my whole point of view. But you can see here that he enjoys adding some of those like kind of tech enhancements to the swordsman, where he has the special vehicle and everything else. So he's hitting on all cylinders when it comes to certain kinds of superhero tropes. And yeah, I mean, everything moves pretty quick. Then you get to kind of see, I guess, that place's version of like an insane asylum, which the swordsman has to sneak in and kind of scope out the lady he apprehended. And then you kind of get a little bit more of the overall meta arc. And it's like just enough to where it's like, uh-oh, this lady, her arrival, pretty much indicates or portends to other unfortunate events that are about to happen. And again, that's just the basic opening of this particular collection. That's really all I want as a reader. Just give me just enough of a hook to where it's like, okay, I want to turn the next page. And in this case, yes, there's a fair amount of telling with just a very light sprinkle of some showing, so that way it doesn't slow down the overall main narrative. Because again, that's just my personal preference. There's some people where they'll go gaga over 90% 90% showing rather than telling. Sometimes books don't need to mimic movies. I can easily picture a lot of stuff in my head, even if somebody only gives me a few lines to set things up, set stuff up. Yeah, how to put this? It's just up to really, just like what I was saying earlier on the Twitter and whatnot. It's up to the reader and the writer to decide, like, okay, what is your limit for any particular thing? Unless you, honest to God, write this stuff yourself, you're never gonna be like 100% in sync with that writer. If that writer's primarily writing for themselves as the audience, then that means that particular setup will cater to them 100%, because that's what they're writing. Some people get upset that, even I get upset that like all the harem crap gets all the attention and sales and stuff, but there also some people are writing more towards market because they want to make a solid second income or make it a primary income. That's just how it is sometimes. And yeah, but to get back a little bit on track, the way he's describing certain things about this world, you definitely get a sense of just how big it's going to be just from the opening chapter, because he has the swordsman accessing a few databases, and I even get the hint that the swordsman might be even a lot older than he might appear. Just because the way he talks to this lady, it's like, what else does he know? And the thing, the way he states to her, you've been here since the fall of man. You're not the serpent of the garden. You're not Lucifer himself. So in that would make you sin or death. So he has more knowledge about his world, which definitely that's one way to drag me in. It's okay that your characters have more in setting knowledge than the reader does when they're first introduced to them. It's a way you can kind of piecemeal out some exposition or some world building without beating the reader over the head with like 20 to 30 pages of useless information like Wheel of Time. I get it. Some people absolutely love Wheel of Time. I enjoyed the prologue opening to Wheel of Time. That I felt was pretty punchy and got to the point. But then, just like some other buddies were saying, yeah, there's like 80 to 90 pages of like, here's them in the Shire, but it doesn't really move all that quickly. It's like, it's glacier pace. And nowadays I don't have time for glacier pace, That's just the way it's going. Like, that's how my tastes have changed. 10 years ago, it might have even said that I could tolerate something like Snyder Man and things like that. Because at the time, deconstruction wasn't nearly as prevalent as it is nowadays. Again, potato. Everybody's gonna like different things, and same goes for this channel. I'm just one Florida woman that's just trying to figure out what she wants. And what I want is definitely contained within the Dark Titan universe as well. Even though he does kind of have a little bit of a Batman-esque kind of bent to this swordsman character, I haven't seen enough just yet to make more of a determination, because I'm trying to give people a little bit of a kind of like a live reaction as I'm going through. And that's about it. The whole compare and contrast between different series continues. But I like the bent that Dark Titan universe is taking, where they're playing up the mythical aspect of superheroes rather than dragging them down into the dirt, into mundanity, which is what most of the Dead 2 do nowadays. So, have a good day, everybody, and I'll continue on with Chapter 2. Maybe I'll even make this a little bit of a series. You never know.